What up, you fluffy bastards? My name is Liquid Blitz, and since they added 3 new grip attachments in PUBG for a total of 5 grips, things are more confusing than ever, so I decided to make this video to figure out which is best, which we should use. So I figured I'd do a side-by-side comparison of the recoil while using each of the grips, and I've also included, I haven't seen these anywhere else, I've included the actual stats for every grip on screen, because while the in-game descriptions have been cleaned up and they look kind of nice now, they are still pretty damn vague. And all my regulars will know, I love me some specifics. Anyway, for these tests, I've used the M416 with no other attachments equipped. That was important because I wanted to see the pure, unaltered effects of the grips specifically. Now, as is my style, all the info is already on screen if you just simply want the juicy info without listening to me. That being said, let's run through all the recoil tests while we go through what the grips actually do. Now, first things first, we're starting with no grip attached at all, just so we have a baseline to compare to. Alright, let's squash that together and move it above none for the final comparison. Now let's move on to our first grip, the vertical grip, the old schooler. This gives you 15% less vertical recoil, but also something it doesn't actually tell you, it gives you 15% less animation kick as well. So in other words, it feels less bouncy overall. Anyway, let's keep this trainer rolling. Let's squash that and move it above vertical. Next up is the angled grip. Now this gives us, conversely, 15% less horizontal recoil, which, as a rule, makes it more accurate when spraying fully automatic because you can control vertical recoil by dragging your aim down, but you can't control horizontal recoil. The angled grip also aims down sight 10% faster, but it has some negatives. It increases weapon sway by 20% and animation kick by 5%. So those negatives basically rule out any long-distance shooting. Anyway, squash and move. Alright, next up we have the first of the new grips, the thumb grip. This gives us 5% less vertical recoil, which is small but every little helps. It also aims down sight 30% faster, which is actually quite nice, especially for close range fighting. It also gives the weapon 20% less sway, which on its own is actually a good thing for long-range fighting. So the thumb grip is, it's a strangely odd mix of things and not great or like the best for anything. Anyway, we'll analyze it later. For now, let's just squash it and move it. Right, moving on once again, now we have the half grip. Now, right off the bat, everyone was telling me that this is the best grip, so I decided actually to double the testing just for this grip, so we actually have 10 lines of recoil instead of just 5. Now the half grip, it actually gives you 8% less vertical and horizontal recoil, a bit of an all-rounder, and it also speeds up your recoil recovery by 10%. On the flip side, the negatives, it does give you 20% more sway and 15% more animation kick. Anyway, guess what we do now? A squash and move! Lastly, and most hilariously, we have the lightweight grip. This gives you, okay, the positives, it gives you 20% less sway and 30% less kick, which sounds awesome. But it actually gives you 10% worse vertical recoil and a 15% slower recoil recovery. Now watching this, that recoil is hilariously high. You don't need no analysis to see that that's awful. Anyway, let's do one final squash and move it over to the side, and let's look at every grip's recoil side by side. Alright, now let's just get the obvious out of the way. The light grip sucks balls. Don't get me wrong, the better sway and less animation kick, it sounds useful for sort of slow tapping at long range, for example, maybe with the SKS. But even if you throw it on an SKS, usually you tend to shoot fast enough that the recoil plays a big role. So even shooting slow at long range, that grip just honestly sucks. So let's just move away from that. Let's move on to the thumb grip in the purple. Now, despite the fact that the thumb grip actually has no negatives, it also doesn't really seem to be much positive either. The extra aim down sight speed is nice, but that's only really useful at sort of very close range. And counter to that, the reduced sway is only really useful with a scope, so long range. So my professional analysis is that the thumb grip seems to be a kind of like a jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none situation. It's a little helpful, it's better than nothing, and it's way better than the light grip. Anyway, next, look at the recoil pattern for the angled grip in blue and compare it to the white when you've got no grip attached. At first glance, you might think that the horizontal recoil is actually better with no grip at all, but actually if you look at individual lines, the patterns are actually straighter with the angled grip, especially for the first 10 rounds or so. Because if you look at the white, with no grip, it's kind of like left and then right and then left. It's all over the place. Now, it's no accident that I've saved the best for last. I bet the first thing you noticed about these results was the height of the vertical grip's recoil, and to a slightly lesser extent, the half grip as well. They both do a great job, as you can see, of reducing the upwards recoil. I was actually surprised to see that the half grip did nearly as good as the vertical, but both of them are awesome. Remember again that for the half grip, I actually did double the number of tests, and it's, as you can see, it's consistently excellent. But that's only looking at vertical recoil. What puts the half grip over the top and makes it the best in my eyes is the fact that it also has less horizontal recoil. You can see that after the first few rounds, the half grip seems to keep control of the sideways movement slightly better than the vertical grip, which makes it slightly better for firing fully automatic. Now on top of that, it recovers from recoil 10% faster, which makes it better for firing in bursts, giving the recoil a chance to come back down every like 6 or 7 bullets. So that's why, in my opinion, the half grip is the best for spraying and close range fighting in general. But you've got to keep in mind the negatives of the half grip. It has worse sway and animation kick, which directly makes it less desirable at sort of tapping and long range fighting in general. That's why the vertical grip is the best for tapping. It has the best vertical recoil, but also less animation kick, not more, so you can keep sight of your enemies much easier between shots. So that's pretty much it. Let's wrap up with a conclusion. I say the half grip is the best for fully automatic close range fighting. The vertical grip is best for tap firing, sort of basically medium to long range. And purely because of the extra horizontal recoil control, I say the angled grip is the second best for spraying. Then my conclusion for the thumb grip is that it makes a nice small boost, but you should replace it as soon as you find a better grip. And rounding off the conclusion, the light grip has such a bad vertical recoil that any positives that it gives you get completely overshadowed by the bad stuff. You know what, if the recoil wasn't so bad with that, it might actually be a good choice for long-range, slow tap firing, but as it is, it honestly sucks the most major of balls. Seriously, actually, if I had to choose light grip or no grip at all, I would actually genuinely choose no grip, but that's just my advice. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you found this useful or interesting at the very least. Also, please remember that because I'm not like a big fancy famous YouTuber, I don't have my own PUBG custom server to sort of test on nice and fast like some of the other YouTubers. I have to do all my testing in real live actual games, which makes videos like this hellishly difficult to make. So if you did like the video, please be sure to hit that like button. It really does help me out immensely. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more similar content. By the way, I live stream regularly, pretty much every day, but only over on Twitch. There's a link in the description to my Twitch channel. Liquid Blitz, out.